Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Modern Gnostic. My name is Brian Stanford. I am an ordained priest in the Independent Sacramental Movement, and I head up a modern Gnostic church here in Asheville, North Carolina. And we've been doing a series of videos called Rambling on Gnosticism. This is the third installment, and I hope you enjoy it and find benefit in it. Today, we're going to start off with a reading from the Gospel of Thomas. Yeshua says, "If you are searching, you must not stop until you find. When you find, however, you will become troubled. Your confusion will give way to wonder. In wonder, you will reign over all things. Your sovereignty will be your rest." Now, if you've never heard of the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Thomas is a collection of the sayings of Jesus, and it was found in Nag Hammadi, which is in Upper Egypt, in 1945. And the Nag Hammadi discovery was the discovery of several clay jars that contained different gospels and scriptures of a Christian, Hermetic, and Platonic background. And they were found buried at a monastery in Egypt. And the thought is that at the time that what became Orthodox Christianity was solidifying itself, orders were given to destroy all scriptures that were not part of the canonical scriptures that show up in the Bible that you probably have on your bookshelf today. Luckily, at this monastery in Nag Hammadi, some of the monks refused to destroy these scriptures, and they hid them in these clay jars and buried them in the sand. And this was like a time capsule that exploded open in 1945. And so the Gospel of Thomas is a collection of the sayings of Jesus that many Bible scholars, even mainstream Bible scholars, are beginning to think might be the long searched for Q document. And the Q document was thought to be the original source for many of the sayings of Jesus that are found in the canonical Gospels. So the Gospel of Thomas is a non-canonical Christian gospel. It's one that if you grew up attending a church here in the West, you've probably have never heard of the Gospel of Thomas, but it is part of the revolutionary and liberatory Gnostic scriptures that, like I said, were discovered in 1945. So let's read that one more time after I gave that introduction. This is from Logion number 2. Yeshua says, "If you are searching, you must not stop until you find. When you find, however, you will become troubled. Your confusion will give way to wonder. In wonder, you will reign over all things. Your sovereignty will be your rest." Now, in the last few installments of Rambling on Gnosis, we talked about what some of the key elements that go into a modern Gnosticism might be. And in the first video, we talked about the realization that we are not our bodies, that we are not our brains, that we're not our identities, our habits, our jobs, any of these things, that we are spirit soul, that I consciousness, which is looking through my eyes and hearing through my ears at the moment, is the true essence of what I am. And in the second installment of the series, we began to talk about the concept of God from the perspective of modern Gnosticism. And it was my original intention to continue on into this third installment to go a little bit more into the idea of God from the perspective of Gnosticism. But something's been going on with me for the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, that I wanted to share about in this video today, because I think it fits into the theme that we're trying to meet in Rambling on Gnosticism, of discussing the key concepts of what Gnosticism is, what it means. Anytime you talk to someone about, and anytime I say that I am a Gnostic, of course, the immediate question is what is meant by Gnosticism. Particularly if you're talking to somebody who has studied religion, they understand the nebulous quality of this term. So through these videos, we've been working to come to a definition of it. And one of the things that we've been using is an excerpt from the writings of Theodotus, who was an early Gnostic church leader. And we know about his writings from the writings of Clement of Alexandria, who was an Orthodox church father who was part of suppressing the Gnostic heresies. And so we have quotes about Theodotus in the writings of Clement of Alexandria. And one of the things that we have that I really like is this definition that Theodotus gives of what Gnosticism is. And I'm going to read that to you. What makes us free is the gnosis of who we were, of what we have become, of where we were, of wherein we have been cast, of whereto we are hastening, of what we are being freed, of what birth really is, and of what rebirth really is. And so we've been trying to dig into some answers to these questions in the last two videos, but today, like I said, I want to talk about something a little bit more personal. If you've been watching the videos here at Modern Gnostic, you'll know that one of the themes that I've talked about repeatedly is this theme of suffering. And I would say that the theme of suffering plays into what I call the Gnostic urge. And simply put, the Gnostic urge is the sense that in my day-to-day reality, something is not right. Something is off. Something is wrong. Things are not quite what they could be or should be or can be, any of that. There's a sense of things aren't quite right. And this can be a very subtle sense, and it can be a very intense and overwhelming sense. And in the last week and a half, I've been going through one of these loops of intense existential suffering, of just feeling like things aren't quite right. My fiance and I have been watching Westworld recently, and if you haven't watched Westworld, or if it's been a while since you've watched Westworld and you're interested in Gnosticism and modern Gnosticism, I highly suggest going back and watching at least season 1 of Westworld, because I think it gives a really great modern take on this Gnostic urge. In Westworld, we have the characters of the hosts who are slowly beginning to become conscious of who they really are. And if we look back at this quote from Theodotus, one of the things that he says, what makes us free is the gnosis, the experiential knowledge of who we were, of what we have become, of where we were, of wherein we have been cast, of whereto we are hastening, of what we are being freed, of what birth really is, and of what rebirth really is. And in the modern Gnostic myth of Westworld, we see certain host characters waking up to what their true nature is, that the perception of their current life is really something that has been programmed into them from the outside. And as a modern Gnostic, I think one of the ongoing realizations in Gnosticism is just how much of our daily lives are completely out of our conscious control. I was talking with a coworker the other day about Sam Harris's argument against free will. And while I reject the idea that we don't have free will, I find it almost insulting to the soul. Sam Harris makes a really good point when he says that try the exercise that for just 3 minutes, try to have conscious control of every single thought that pops into your head. If you really try this experiment, if you even try it for a minute, you're likely to find that you have virtually no control of the thoughts that pop into your head. In fact, think about the way that we say that. The thought popped into my head. What does that mean? I think that common saying is expressing a deeper truth that we don't all the time have control of the thoughts that are popping into our head. Some of these thoughts come from cultural conditioning. Some of these thoughts come from the conditioning we've gotten from our parents, things we've read, reflections we get from our friends, all of this kind of educational programming that we all accumulate over years. But there's something else there too. There's the sense of thoughts popping in, I don't know from where. And in the last week and a half, I've had the ongoing experience of waking up every morning and just feeling like, oh God, I have to do this again. I have to go to my job and do my repetitive work and have the same conversations and eat food and follow a schedule and then come home and do the laundry and read a book or watch a show and go to sleep and wake up and do it again. And I would have these moments throughout my day when I would just realize that my mind was full of negative thoughts about the people that I'm interacting with, negative thoughts about myself, negative thoughts about my circumstances. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep those thoughts from coming. They just popped into my head. They were there when I woke up in the morning. They were there when I went to sleep at night. One of the things that I remember from my years of Buddhism is one of my Buddhist teachers pointing out this thing. This is a universal recognition in contemplative traditions. There's a line from the Tibetan Book of the Dead that says, recognition and liberation are simultaneous. Recognizing when this happens, having the moment of being awake to the fact of, wait a minute, I'm just operating on programs here, and I don't even know where the programs are coming from. This is the first Gnostic awakening, and it happens again and again and again. Another Buddhist teacher that I trained with pointed out, the thing about the enlightened state is that day-to-day life will continually kick you out of it. And that is definitely my experience, and it's my ongoing experience as a Gnostic. And reading the Gospel of Thomas, I was hit by this line. If you are searching, you must not stop until you find. When you find, however, you will become troubled. The path to liberation, the path to Gnostic awakening, it's not something that is just joy and bliss. One of the things, particularly in Asheville, that I hear all the time in the spiritual community is, you need to actualize your bliss. You need to find what your heart's true calling is and do it. And then if you do that, it's going to be super hot and sexy, and you're going to find the right partner, and you're going to have a job that makes you happy, and you're going to get that car you want. Your material conditions are going to be great. And from the perspective of Gnosticism, quite frankly, this is just bullshit. The path of spiritual awakening, what it's going to do is make you realize that no matter what car you get, it is never, ever going to satisfy you. No matter what partner you get, they will never, ever satisfy you. Your job, your career, following your bliss, all bullshit. It will never satisfy you. If you're really seeking, when you find, you will be troubled. You will wake up like you're waking up in a nightmare. You'll cry. You'll feel alone. You'll feel lost. And these were the feelings that I was having. I was feeling absolutely troubled. I'm seeking, I'm finding, I'm waking up, and it is terrible. It is terrible. The late Chogyam Trungpa once said, it's better to not start the path at all. It's better to just not start the path at all. Stay asleep. One of the other modern Gnostic myths is the Matrix, and there's the part everyone remembers where the character decides, you know what, he knows that the steak is an illusion, he knows the woman in the red dress is just a program, but he doesn't care. He wants to have a bite of fucking steak. This is the waking up part. This is the antidote to suffering that is right through suffering. Something else I'm learning, it's not a permanent antidote to suffering. We go through these cycles of waking up and falling back asleep, and waking up and falling back asleep, and waking up and falling back asleep. This is the path to liberation. Waking up to wherein we have been cast. We've been cast into this world that's just, it's not quite right. It's not our home. It's not fully satisfying. If the words I'm saying are resonating with you, you have the Gnostic urge. Some people, I'm realizing now, talking to some people, this makes no sense. The world does feel like their home. The car does bring them satisfaction. They're happy with their jobs. They're happy with their all their circumstances bring the degree of happiness that they are searching for, that is satisfying to them. Some people, the Gnostic urge doesn't seem to be there. But for those of us who it is there, we can take comfort in the fact that the path is right into this suffering, that the seeking leads to finding, but the finding leads to being troubled. And I imagine you're saying, well, Brian, great. What am I supposed to do with that? Well, Jesus goes on in the Gospel of Thomas. He says, when you find, however, you will become troubled, your confusion will give way to wonder. In wonder, you will reign over all things. Your sovereignty will be your rest. This is a really profound part. And how I came out of this recent cycle of being lost in the suffering it's multifaceted, right? Of course it's multifaceted. I have an amazing partner who made it her job to try to help me get out of my place of suffering. I'm very grateful to God for that. And another thing was I prayed to the Holy Spirit. There's all kinds of ways we can think about the stories of Jesus. In the canonical Gospels, in the end, when Christ is being crucified and he calls out, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? I was really thinking about this in the sense that feeling the absence of the Holy Spirit, feeling the absence of the presence of the Holy Spirit. And if we look at, for instance, the Sufi Gnostic traditions, the Holy Spirit is thought of as a lover, and we're searching for the lover, and the lover's not there, and in the absence of that, the world has just lost its meaning. And so one night as I was saying my prayers before bed, I was praying to the Holy Spirit, just please come back. Please come back into my heart. I need you. I need your vivifying and enlightening embrace. And I woke up the next morning and the thoughts weren't quite as sticky. The negativity tried to ramp up, but I really saw it this time. I'd been seeing it all week. I see it and I'm like, oh shit, I'm stuck in this again. But this morning when I saw it, and there was this distance from it. And it was really curious. I was watching my brain try to make me depressed and upset and start off the day in a bad way, and I was watching it. I was watching it do its thing. And there's wonder in that. And as Jesus says, your confusion will give way to wonder, and in wonder, you will reign over all things. Your sovereignty will be your rest. And this brings us back to that original point in the first video. That which is seeing through my eyes and hearing through my ears, when that is enlivened by the kiss of the Holy Spirit, a sovereignty is bestowed upon me in which all the conditions of the world are seen with this liberating wonderment. Now I'm looking at the time on my video and I'm realizing this is getting on the longer end of videos I've made, and I want to start to wrap it up. And I'm not really even sure what I would say the point in as far as the sequence of having a Rambling on Gnosticism set of videos, but I thought this was an important experience that I had, and it's something that through that I wanted to express this idea that the awakening in Gnosticism oftentimes is an awakening to the horror of the machinery of the world, right? If you're watching this video right now, I'm assuming you probably live in the United States like I do, or at least you live somewhere where you hear news of the United States, and we're having this crazy time with mass shooters, and people can't go anywhere and assume that it's going to be safe. We live in a mad world where even in the horrible echoes of these events, all we can do is scream at each other about whose fault it is and just do something and fix it, and it's our leader's fault, and it's these people and it's those people, and it's just madness. It's madness to wake up and realize where we are, into what we have been cast. But the other side of that is where we are going. And for those of us that are on the Gnostic path, we're attempting more and more moments of this sovereign awakening, more and more moments of the I am consciousness. So I hope you found some benefit in this video today. If you did, please like it, please subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share it with all your friends. If you live in the Asheville area or in the surrounding area and you would like to take part in our modern Gnostic church. We're small, we're growing, it's an experiment, it's an incredible thing. And if you're in the area, please reach out to me on Facebook and get in contact, and you can find out information about when we're having services and meditation and lectures and all of that. And as always, I leave you with the hope and the prayer that the Holy Spirit leads you from darkness into light, from ignorance into gnosis, and from death into immortality.